So in this video, we are going to see and start how we can implement unmanaged scenario. In our previous video, we have already gone through a little bit of theory part, what is unmanaged scenario, and in which case we need to go towards the unmanaged scenario implementation or the managed implementation scenario. If you haven't seen, I would highly recommend you to please watch that video before starting this video. In this series of unmanaged scenario videos, we will again create the same application which we have created using the managed scenario. And in managed scenario, as we are all aware, everything was handled by the framework itself. Everything means CRUD operations, although all other functionalities we have implemented manually there as well. And same will be true for unmanaged scenario. The difference would be now whatever the CRUD operation system has handled in case of managed scenario, now in unmanaged scenario we need to write all of that code. To starting this unmanaged scenario implementation, I have already created a skeleton here which contains mainly 3 different directories. The core data services, which contains our CDS views. These are all the CDS views which contains interface view as well as consumption view, or you can say projection views. The other folder is metadata extension, where we have defined all our annotations which will be used to build our front-end application. We have here 2 different metadata extensions, one for student and one for result. We also have created some data dictionary objects which contains data element, some database table and domains. We have 2 database table here created. One is for student and another is for result. Data element, we have 4 different data elements here. Let's open the semester one. And here we also have some domains defined. Let's see the domain for semester. It is same as what we have seen in our managed scenario, because as I said, we will be creating the same application which we have created in managed scenario, but now we will be going through with unmanaged scenario. Now if we see the data definitions, we have interface views for course, gender, result, semester result and student, and projection view for student and result. All of these things we are not going through in this series because we have already seen and learned all of these things, how to write, how to create in detail in a different series as well as in managed scenario series as well. If you are not aware of all of these concepts, I would recommend you to please go through that series and then start this one. Now let's start. Very first thing, after creating the CDS views and all those things, very first thing which we need to create is creating a behavior definition. So let's create the behavior definition here. And for creating a behavior definition, we will be creating it for student. This is the interface view and this is the root view. If you see here, this is the root view. Now to create the behavior definition, let's right click on this root view, CDS view, and click on new behavior definition here. We have already seen this thing that a behavior definition and an entity is one-to-one relationship. That's why you are not able to change the name here. Now the next thing which is all about this series is this option, the implementation type. Now here by default it says managed, but now we will be going through unmanaged scenario here. As soon as we select this unmanaged scenario and create the behavior definition, system recognizes that now whatever implementation or functionality needs to be done should be done by the developer, and framework will not take care of the crude operation which it was taking care in case of managed scenario. So let's select unmanaged here and click on next, click on finish. Okay, so now if you see here in behavior definition, we have got one entry, and this is what the code gets generated here. It has some new things as well, which we will be seeing step by step. For now, let's focus on this keyword. When we have created the managed scenario, the very first word in the behavior definition was managed. Now in case of unmanaged scenario, the very first word is unmanaged. Now the next thing is this is the class which will be implemented. The second line here says strict. The functionality of this line, a strict keyword, is framework will force the developer to follow the best practices and standard guideline to create the unmanaged scenario wrap application. If you remove this keyword, the system will not check the standard guideline while developer is writing the code here. So it is highly recommend never comment out this line. Developer is getting some error in the behavior implementation or behavior definition. When comment out this line, all of the error resolves itself. The errors were coming because the system is trying to help you write a better code following the standard guidelines set by SAP for unmanaged scenario or the managed scenario. It is recommended to always keep this strict keyword here. Now the next line is we are defining the behavior here, and let's start modifying this. Very first thing which we will do is create an alias name. Let's give an alias name here. Now the next thing is we will be having a draft capability. So let's create a draft table, and our table name is Z students UM underscore D underscore UM. This will be our draft table name which will be created. Let's make it students. Now the next line is late numbering is one new concept which we will be seeing when we will implement this functionality. We will not be using the late numbering, but we will be using early numbering. This is done. Now the lock master. Now if we are using locking, then we also need to set the total e tag, and the e tag field will be last change date. All of these concepts we have already seen in our managed scenario series, but whenever it is needed, we will see everything in detail. Now e tag master, last change date. Now here what system has created, all of these methods create, update and delete. Now let's add the feature instance here. Feature instance, and feature instance. Okay. Now the next thing is, since we are using a draft table here, there are certain methods which we need to define specifically. Now when we have seen the managed scenario, all of these methods were taken care by the framework itself. But now since we are doing unmanaged, we need to write all of the code and we need to define all of the methods. So let's do that. Very first thing which we will be doing is, let's create this draft table. You can right click on this and click on quick fix. It will give you an option to create the draft table. Double click on this and we have got the draft table name. Click on next and finish. Okay, so this is our draft table. Here we are seeing some error, so let's change the data type and make it 60. It is done. Activate our draft table. It is activated and created. Close this. Now let's start defining the methods which are needed, or the actions basically. So draft action. Okay, draft action. So these are all the methods which we need to define here. Very first method which we will define is edit. Draft action, activate. Draft action, discard. Draft action, resume. Now there is one method which is mandatory, and that will be draft determine action, which is prepare. What these methods are saying here is not active for the draft. Okay, now okay, so one thing which we have forgot is we need to, since we are using a draft table, we need to tell the framework that we want to use the draft capability. So for that we need to add draft keyword here. Okay, now see, all of these errors are gone. Click on save once and add with draft here. This is done. Now the next thing which we need to do is, when we will be creating the record, we do not want all of the fields to be filled by the user. There must be some of the fields like key fields which should be read only. So for that, let's write field, and we want them to be read only. And what are the fields you want read only? We want ID field to be read only, and we want gender description to be read only, and we also want student ID to be read only. Okay, now we also need to map all of these fields. Once the fields are created, data is entered, we need to map all of the fields. For that, we always write mapping for your database table name z student underscore unmanaged, and we add all of these fields. See, we have all the fields available here. Let me quickly map all of the fields. Okay, so we have mapped all of these fields here. ID, student ID, first name, last name, age, course description, and all of these fields which are available in this table basically. Let's see if there is any error. So everything is clean now for student. Now let's move to result behavior. Now very first thing we always do is provide an alias name here. We will be using early numbering, so early numbering, and here as well we will be using a draft capability. Let's create a draft table here, and the table name is z results underscore d underscore u1. This will be our draft table here. Now early numbering is done, lock dependent by is done, authorization dependent by is done. Now we need to add e tag as well. So e tag dependent by underscore student. Okay, so this is done. Now these are the normal methods: update, delete, and id field is read only here. Now association student, we need to have a draft capability, so let's add with the draft here. This. Now what all other fields you want to be read only here? So let's define read only. And what are the fields? So I want course description to be read only, then semester description should be read only, and semester result description should be read only field. Okay, I have added like this, but you can also add comma and then all other fields here. Now we have defined a mapping. Let's do the same for result table as well. So mapping for z results underscore unmanaged. Let me add all of the fields quickly. Okay, so I have added all of the fields which is available in the result table here. We have not created the draft table, so let's create a draft table here. Right click, quick fix, and create. Next, and finish. Our draft table is created. Now again we are seeing some error here. Let's go and copy the data type and change it. Everything clear? Click on save and activate. This draft table is created and activated. Now click on save. All of the errors are now gone. Let's activate our behavior definition. Okay, our behavior definition is now created and it is active as well. Now the next thing which we need to do is creating the behavior implementation. If you see this bulb here, click on that and create the behavior implementation class. Double click on this and click on next and finish. Okay, so our behavior implementation class is now ready, and if you see, there is a lot of code which has been generated, most probably more than the managed scenario, but all of this code is a blank box basically, and in each of the box, or you say in each of the methods, we need to write code which we want to implement. Already we have seen about this class in the previous video of unmanaged scenario introduction. You will see here LHC student. This LHC stands for local handler class for student entity. Now you have different methods available here: create, early numbering, create, update, read, lock, RBA results, which stands for read by association, and the association would be result. Now the next is CBA result, which stands for create by association result, and early numbering CBA result, which stands for early numbering create by association results. This is the implementation of this class, which again stands for local handler class student implementation, and this has all of these blank methods which we will be using to write our code, custom logic. Now the next section is local handler class for result, and it also has some of the methods here, and it also has the implementation. So local handler class results, and all of these methods are here. We will be writing the code inside these methods. The third class which gets created is LSCZI student unmanaged. This LSC stands for local saver class. We have already seen in our previous introduction video of unmanaged scenario what this local handler class and what is local saver class. If you haven't seen that video, I would highly recommend you to please watch that video first. Now this local saver class is also having all of these methods. We have already seen what are the use of this method and when to use this method. Now this is again the local saver class implementation, and all of these methods are there. So this is what the behavior implementation class which framework provides to write the custom logic, whatever you want to implement. Now let's activate. Our class is now activated here. We have created one behavior definition for student. We also have a projection view for the student. Let's create the behavior definition for projection as well. For that, right click on the projection view of student root entity and create a behavior definition. Now it is a projection. Click on next and finish. Our behavior definition for projection view is also ready. Let's create the alias name student and result. Click on activate. Our projection behavior definition is also activated now. So in this video, we have seen how to create the unmanaged scenario behavior definition and projection behavior definition. That's all for now in this video, and if you like the content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.